coming to you live, previously recorded, from Woower's Cantina.
We don't serve their kind here.
This is Moss Eisley Radio, your source for Star Wars gaming news.
Believe it or not, we are back. This is Mos Eisley Radio, your source for Star Wars gaming news. You don't believe it? Well, too bad for you, Mr. Guy, who I will introduce momentarily after myself. In case you forgot, my name is Evan Lewis, and the guy speaking at me is the one and the only, still, Leo Andry.
Actually, I'm the third one.
Are you really the third one? Are you Leo McAndry the third of the New Hampshire McAndrys?
No, but both my grandfather and great-grandfather were named Leo Andry also.
Oh, really?
So,
well, there you are. You can sort of like tack it on in a parentheses.
I'll
Or
do
not.
that.
You okay? Do that. All right. So, we have got a lot of stuff to talk about, and people might be wondering where we've been. But I've explained on tweets and Facebook that our window of opportunity to do this has shrunk quite a bit. So if one thing gets in the way, it's pretty much shot. And that stinks, not just because we can't put out a show as frequently as we want to, but listeners may not realize this is our hangout time. Like, this is when you and I get to sit down and hang out, albeit over the internet, but we don't get to hang out on a regular basis and go play games together. They're like, this is our hangout time. So, I have missed you, Leo.
Well, gee, thanks. Miss you too, Evan.
Aw. Okay, that's enough of that.
I did
Housekeeping's out of the way.
get your gift in the mail, though. I'm very appreciative of the Troy Denning autograph you obtained for me. I'll cherish it forever.
I was afraid you'd, like, immolate it as soon as you saw it.
No, I pulled it out of the envelope and I was like, what is this? And then I saw the name at the bottom and I was like, then I was more like, what is this?
And the autograph was, it wasn't just like, to Leo, your friend Troy Denning. There was a message. And I didn't tell him that you wanted to, kill him personally and hope his family suffers for all eternity. But I did say that you would never forgive him for killing both the Solo boys. And, he basically said, look, I just did what they told me to do. If it hadn't been him that killed them, it would have been me. He dragged me into it. Which I appreciated. So, you have a new friend.
Ah, lucky me.
Okay. Now then. See, interesting stuff did happen while we were away. In fact, so much happened that we've had to edit out quite a bit that we were going to talk about. But that's okay, because we still have a lot to talk about. And we'll start at the top of the order. Initiative went to, as always, SWTOR must have just a really high dex, because they always go first. So, SWTOR. The big news is the 12v12 PvP space battles. Now, first off, Leo, we had been talking about this since before the game came out. This was something that we said, hey, you've got space battles, you better do PvP with it.
Yeah, I mean, and just in general, the whole on-the-rails thing that you have for space combat right now gets pretty boring pretty fast. It doesn't take too many rounds of going through through the exact same space battle over and over again before you really get sick of it. And like their last couple editions, as far as space missions, were pretty disappointing since they just keep adding the exact same mission over again. You just, fly around it in a slightly different pattern than you did before. So
And that's all that they've really amounted to is learning patterns.
yeah, exactly. Once you know where the ships are going to come from, it's you just move your mouse there and hold down the trigger.
Yeah, you likened it to, now my brain is crapping out on me. Rebel Assault.
Yeah, basically.
It's way more like that than either X-Wing or Rogue Squadron. But now,
it's
hopefully,
pretty much exactly Rebel Assault.
which I mean, back in the day, I got into that. But I mean, gaming has moved along so far since then. It was like a big step backwards. But now we're gonna have an open field of play with the PvP. So do you think we're gonna get more of an X-Wing style, like the full free roaming, not total control obviously, but more control, or the arcadey but still more free roaming, less on rails of something like the Rogue Squadron series?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's probably going to feel more like you're playing Rogue Squadron than X-Wing, but it's still going to be an improvement. And at the very least, it's got me intrigued enough to want to give it a try again.
So did you get a look at the trailer?
Yeah, I did.
Impressions coming away, or not enough information to really form an opinion besides, hey, this might be cool?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't give us a whole lot of information, but it's not going to be very long until people are going to be able to get in and start testing it anyway, so we're not going to have to wait all that long.
So, based on that, you think that getting a chance to at least give it a shot is going to be worth a 1-month subscription to get in and see what you think?
Yeah, I think so. I'm considering doing it.
Well, of course, since we're preferred status players,
Yeah.
I mean, we still get there sooner than general populace, which general populace is probably preferred almost entirely at this point. I can't imagine there are too many people who are still, like, bottom tier
Straight
players.
up just free to play?
I mean, a few people, I'm sure, but probably not many.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some out there, but yeah, I will probably re-up my subscription here for a month or two, just long enough to get in, give it a try, see if it sucks or not.
Mm-hmm.
See if I'll be totally disappointed.
Well, and it's going to be PvP, which
Yeah.
you and I sort of once in a while occasionally enjoy. We're not... Well, we're not PvPers like the people who care about their ranking on Season 8 or whatever of WoW Arena.
Well, no, but I mean, I PvP'd a lot more than you did. I enjoy it. It's fun.
Oh, I enjoyed the SWTOR PvP more than any other PvP I'd ever done. I certainly like it better than League of Legends. I'm
still find myself wishing that we could have actual, like, real open space, you know, like, jump to light speed style. Well, not exactly jump to light speed style, because I didn't like that expansion either.
Yeah.
But
so more than just isolated instances of warfare, but you'd like to see, I can't think of a good example, but I guess more of the, Conan or Dark Age of Camelot style of PvP.
well, I'm not even just talking about that. I mean, I'd even just like to see, like, the ability to do a mission out in space or whatever, you know, or a quest, you know.
Oh, I see what you're getting at now. Yeah, actually have it matter in a larger scale than just side missions.
Yeah, or you know what, even just side missions too. Even if it was more than just a PvP arena.
Mm-hmm.
I'd
Like it actually had some impact.
yeah. Or if you made it a larger area,
Mm-hmm.
like a really big area, and then made it more like a battleground style where you could capture space stations and some of those kind of things. People could come and go and whatnot.
I think we'd also touched on it before. We'd mentioned the Battlefront 2 space battles. That was one of your favorite parts of that game, even though you weren't a huge fan of it, right?
Yeah, I pretty much spent my entire time playing Battlefront 2 in the cockpit of a Starfighter.
Now, the one other thing that I thought was curious from the trailer was that they announced that you would not... Well, they didn't come out and say, you won't be using your primary ship, but what they said was that there's a slew of different styles of ships to choose from, and you could customize them.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they even said in the press release where if you, anyone who's a subscriber by the 1st here of November is going to get, gunship and custom paint jobs for the gunship, whatever that's going to end up being, you know, which, yeah, leads me to believe you'll be able to get different starships and stuff. Now, it'll be interesting to see if all the starship stats are going to be the same, or if they're going to have, if you choose different types of starships to fill a different role, you know, in the combat. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, just like we're looking at with X-Wing that we'll touch on later, you've got support ships and you've got actual, I guess I'd say DPS for lack of a better descriptor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of exciting that they're actually innovating. I mean, it's stuff that we expected, stuff that we wanted, but the fact that they're actually adding something like this, you know, I guess late in the game compared to when we thought we might see it is good. Just to touch on something else tangentially related, Christian has only recently started playing and enjoying WoW because they're doing different things with it, like the pet battles and a few other things that make it different than other MMOs. You know, 9 years along. So, I mean, they're still innovating, and SWTOR is still kind of getting to those things that we expected at first, which is, you know, leaving a lot of people feeling like, well, wish you'd had this sooner, but we'll touch on community reaction a little bit later. And unless you have any other thoughts on this, we will move on to what I think is probably your favorite part.
Sure, let's move on.
Okay. X-Wing Wave 3. Is this your favorite part?
Yeah.
Because you're having a ton of fun with X-Wing.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. You're doing League now.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing there's a X-Wing tournament coming. I'll be playing in tomorrow. That one's going to be pretty cool. First place wins one of every ship from Wave 3.
Oh my gosh.
Which I don't necessarily need, because I've already got everything I want for Wave 3, so, I don't know. We'll see if I can get some store credit or something. Or I guess I'll just start doing more custom paint jobs.
So does that mean that you don't have all of Wave 3, and you've selectively chosen to not get certain things?
Oh no, I have all of Wave 3. It's
okay.
Just, I've got multiples of some ships already, and okay. I don't need any more. And gotcha. I don't see myself ever. I've got like 2 B-Wings, and I don't see myself ever using more than that. At least not until like if I start playing like in epic format tournaments or something like that. But
so you've got multiple B-Wings. Would that be your pick for best of the wave?
It was until I started playing with it. The more I've been playing with them, the more I actually ended up enjoying the Hawk 290, which is ironic because when they first announced the ships, that was the one that I was the least interested in and the least excited about.
Oh yeah, I think everyone said, why are the stats so bad on this iconic ship, the first EU ship? Why is it so crappy in terms of its just flat stats? But you're enjoying it. Yeah.
I don't think I would ever use it with like the generic pilot.
Mm-hmm.
At that point it's pretty much useless, you know? But with, Kyle Katarn and especially Jan Ors is actually she's the highest point value pilot on there, and her ability to give your allies extra attack dice is just, it's really awesome, especially when you pair it up with somebody like Wedge.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty good. In fact, I'm going to be using that combination here at the tournament tomorrow.
Well, and I was going to ask, since Jan is the highest skill pilot for that, I imagine she's fairly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And Wedge is fairly expensive compared to the rest.
Yeah.
So where does that leave you? You're 2 ships in the hole. Probably not a lot of room for upgrades. So what's your third parentheses fourth going to be?
Well, you still have room for a little bit of. I've been running it with Garvin Trace actually, but what I think I finally settled on and what I'm going to be using at the tournament tomorrow is it's going to be Wedge and Jan. Wedge is going to have Expose on him for even more attack dice.
Oh, that's so ridiculous.
I know. And then I'm also going to have a pair of A-Wings in there. You can fit 2 generic A-Wings in there.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I assume they're pretty cheap compared to an A or an X or a B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, generic, the lowest level pilot for the A-Wings is 18 points only, I think, which is...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The only disappointing part is this current squad layout. I don't have the points to put an engine upgrade on the Hawk 290, which is really nice to have because it really helps out with the maneuverability problems of the Hawk 290. I mean, this thing flies like a whatever, a thing that doesn't fly very good.
Yeah, well, I mean, its moniker is fitting, the Moldy Crow.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of spells it out for you. Since we're on the topic of best of the wave, I don't know if I've ever asked you what you thought the best of waves 1 and 2 were, just in a nutshell, really quick.
Well, I think of the original sets, I still think Wedge or Darth Vader were probably the best.
Yeah.
And then for Wave 2, I don't know where I would put the best, but it would probably end up being like Han and the Falcon was one of the more powerful combos out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watched and shared out a video from Team Covenant from one of their tournaments where someone had a squad of 2 fire sprays and 1 TIE fighter, I think, with Howl Runner, if I'm not mistaken. And, from a story perspective, from a military perspective, it just, it wouldn't work. But, thinking from a game tactics perspective, it got him pretty far. And he got chewed up eventually by Biggs, Wedge, and Luke. But that 2 fire spray seems to be or multi-fire spray seems to be more popular than I would have thought it to be. Have you seen it much?
Yeah, some. In fact, it was, what was it, at Gen Con, wasn't it? There was one of the top squads was a 3 fire spray squad.
Yeah, I believe that was a Gen Con.
Just 3 generic fire sprays.
And they're so tough, and they've got the 360 firing.
Well, no, they've got not 360.
Not quite 360.
They can do front and back.
Right.
They can't shoot to their sides.
Okay, I stand corrected. So, what's been the impact? Well, actually, you talked about the impact on your play on the Rebel side. You were playing. I think you were playing primarily 3X, 3-4X at first.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing a lot. Is mostly usually like 2 to 3 X-wings and a Y-wing thrown in there. I think I had either that or a YT with Chewie and draw their fire, and then a few other ships sprinkled in there as an escort for that. But yeah, I haven't really played a lot of Rebels. Like here, this with the squad with Jan and Wedge is one of the first Rebel squads I've built that I'm actually really excited to. This will actually be my first competition I've gone to where I've brought a Rebel squad rather than an Imperial one to play.
Then all the more so, how have Wave 2 and 3 especially affected your Imperial squads?
Wave 2 mostly affected by making my Imperial squads smaller, because I was adding interceptors in. Well, no, not even really. I honestly didn't play interceptors a whole lot. Mostly I had fire spray with TIE fighters. I'd run a single fire spray with about 3 or 4 TIE fighters.
Because at first, the best Imperial squad that you could really do was like 8 or 9 generic TIEs.
Well, I wouldn't really say best.
Maybe okay,
it was 8.
quotations.
8 was the maximum, and it was one of those deals where people just hadn't had enough experience with the game. The more people played, the less powerful the 8 TIE swarm got. But I think towards the end there was, about a 6 to 7 TIE swarm was still probably your optimal Imperial build. It's not quite as true anymore, but as far as how Wave 3 is really affecting the Imperials, I don't know necessarily yet. Amongst my group, I've yet to see a really, really effective Imperial squad with the Wave 3 ships. I mean, there's, like with the bombers, like those seem kind of, I don't know, I'm on the fence about them, because it seems like for the bombers, unless if you miss with any of your missiles or torpedoes, they're just a big, huge pile of wasted points. Now, if you can hit and possibly even take out a ship with some of your missiles, then bombers stand to be really, really powerful. I think 9 times out of 10 for me, though, I've found that I would rather not play with a bomber just because of that whole, random factor as to whether the missiles that you spent a bunch of points on, and if there's almost no point in running a bomber unless you're going to throw some missiles or torpedoes on it.
Right, and we've kind of discussed in the past that early on the strategy was spend your points on pilots and not on, or at least on upgrades that weren't going to turn and burn. That they wouldn't just go away like the torpedo. You'd spend your points on upgrades that lasted. So you have to invest those points if you're going with the bomber. Does it seem like that's going to be better when we get to cinematic play?
Well, possibly. I mean, there are a lot of other things that are now in this set that do make missile play better. It's a lot depending on how you play the game. It's a lot easier to get target locks. There's a lot of other ships that can throw around rerolls and things like that. There's like the one TIE bomber. I believe it's Major Reimer, who I'm convinced must be like an Imperial DJ.
Major Reimer in the house. What? You knew that was coming.
Yeah, I believe it's him anyways, who he has the ability to let allies re-roll dice on secondary attacks. So, that's something that's going to be that really helps with your chances of hitting with with missiles. And, when you're able to re-roll a couple of those dice, and like assault missiles, if you can get close enough to use those, I mean, not assault missiles, the advanced protons.
Right.
If you can actually get within range 1 with those, and if you happen to have a target lock and a focus, those are almost a guaranteed kill on most smaller ships. But anytime I've ran a ship with advanced proton torpedoes on, it's always been against faster, more maneuverable ships. So actually closing into that range 1 to use them has just been a pain in the butt. I guess if you ran also with like a fire spray with an ion cannon on it to ionize ships so you could catch up to them with your TIE bomber, that might be an interesting squad to use there.
That would be pretty interesting. So the only one we haven't touched on yet from Wave 3 is the Lambda shuttle. Have you seen any impact from that at all?
Yeah. They're so ridiculously unmaneuverable though that I haven't enjoyed playing one all that much unless I'm purposefully using its non-maneuverability.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that because you get the anti-pursuit lasers, which lets you do damage anytime another ship runs into you, and so you basically make sure that they run into you. Then,
interesting. So less impact than the Moldy Crow for you personally. At least,
for me,
sounds
yeah,
like it.
Yeah, definitely. It's also it's been hard for me to judge because almost every match I've played since Wave 3 has come out has been with really Wave 3 heavy, or has been against rather Wave 3 heavy squads as well. So it's been hard for me to judge just how well the Wave 3 ships are going to perform against some of the, the powerful squads from before Wave 3. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, even just in the quick breakdown you gave us of your squad for tomorrow, you've got 1 Wave 1, 2 Wave 2s, and a Wave 3. So you're integrating them pretty well from the sounds of it.
Mm-hmm.
And moving on to bigger and better X-Wing news. By now everyone's heard that we're getting 2 oversized but not quite to scale ships for use in other formats later on. So take us through each one of these and your thoughts.
All right. Well, the first one of the 2 large ships that they announced is the Carillion Corvette, the Tantive 4, which we see at the beginning of A New Hope as Princess Leia's ship. And let me tell you, I got to see this thing when I stopped at the Fantasy Flight store down in the cities, and it is a really beautiful model. Just all the detail and just how big this thing is. It's I don't know, it was a little hard to judge with it being behind the glass and everything, but it's probably about 1.5 feet at least.
So,
which puts it really close to being on scale, because I think for it to match scale exactly, it would have had to have been about 20 inches or so long, if I remember right. So this is only a few inches short of scale.
So basically, unless someone told you it's not to scale, you might be inclined to think that it was.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. Because, I mean, when people were saying, oh, it's not the scale, why couldn't they do it right? I hate you forever. It's just like, get over it.
Yeah, I mean, and they've got reasons. I understand their reasons. They basically said, hey, if we didn't shrink these down some, they would be too large and too cost prohibitive to ever actually make. And so, like they said, they're going for more of for as far as scale, rather than keeping exactly to the 1/270th as they are in for the small and medium ships. They're going for more of this feels right to us scale,
Right.
Which, I'll be interested to see if they continue with these large ships. What do they do for the Imperials, down in the future? I mean, they're most likely still not going to have a Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
Because that ship is so massive that they would really have to scale it down so much that I would think at that point it would no longer feel right, But yeah, and either that or they leave it bigger and it would be really, really expensive. I mean, the Carillion Corvette here on its own is going to be $90, which...
Oh, man.
I don't know. It's no more than... That's like the same price as a booster box of Magic cards, which...
Yeah.
I used to have no trouble dropping cash for a box of boosters.
Yeah. People will spend... Well, I mean, look at how much Warhammer stuff. I mean, that's always the initial comparison, is this versus Warhammer. And you don't need to spend money on paint. And you don't need to spend money on little buildings and flocking and an ounce of sand for $20.
Have you seen that huge Warhammer set you can buy? It's like...
Oh, the starter set, Dark Ascension?
No. The
the 1,200 Space Marines?
Or
is it 12,000?
Like, I think that it's like $12,000 or something like that.
I think I could be wrong. I think it's 12,000 of the Ultramarines for $1,200. Let me pull it up on Games Workshop website, even though I've never bought anything from them, and I never intend to unless I win the lottery.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find it too, because I can't remember how much it was and how much it cost, and I was just like, oh yeah, a complete Ultramarines chapter for it's only $11,500 for 1,200 Space Marine models.
Wait, so it's 1,200 for essentially 12,000?
No, you get 1,200 models for $12,000.
Yeah. Ugh. I guess that's good.
I mean, and they're not all just Space Marines. There's also a ton of vehicles and stuff in there.
Right. Which is, I mean, there is value there. There's certainly value, but, even just looking at the cost of starting, which, compared to other things, compared to buying like an Xbox One or a PS4, it's considerably less to start Warhammer, in all honesty.
Yeah, and I'd say I've gotten a lot more time and enjoyment spent with this game, with X-Wing, than I have with either my PS3 or my 360, or them both put together, in all honesty. I haven't even turned on my 360 and God, it's got to be like 2 years now.
Yeah, it had been months for me, and I started it up because I felt guilty for not having played it. And I played a little bit of Halo 4, and I got my butt kicked. And I was like, well, that was fun. And we turned on the PS3 for Netflix.
Yeah, that's what... PS3 is Netflix and Blu-ray player, and that's it, pretty much nowadays.
Which is kind of awesome. And then when... well, of course, the next Uncharted will probably be PS4. But anyways. But you're right. I mean, I think we just both came to the same conclusion. You can spend less money. It may seem like a lot, but it's less on a hobby like this compared to buying a brand new game system that you will play a few times and then grow tired of.
Mm-hmm.
So get out there and spend $12,000, everybody. That's your lesson for the day.
They're not, the worst part is they're not even painted. So after all that, you have to spend, I mean, and like, especially if you buy like official like Games Workshop Citadel paints and stuff, those are not cheap.
Yeah.
God, I can't.
Yeah,
I wonder how much paint you would go through painting 12,000 models.
Oh my gosh.
Or 1,200 models.
Just on base alone.
Yeah.
Because I priced like getting into it, like with the starter set, Dark Ascension, which is anywhere from like $80 to $100 based on where you buy it, and you get a bunch, but you'll want the big book. You don't want the little book that comes with, so that's $75, and then you want the paint, and I would get like the starter kit, and that's like what, $50?
Mm-hmm.
So compared to X-Wing, it's way more expensive. Compared to an Xbox One, way less expensive. So really, it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
But Games Workshop will suck every cent out of you. This is a fact. And since we're not a Warhammer podcast, we will say it. Games Workshop will suck every single last red penny out of you. So buy a Fantasy Flight. And maybe they'll pay us for saying that. I doubt it, though.
Nope, they won't.
They won't.
So, anyways, other large ship is the.
It's been a while, folks. Stay with us. Come on.
We mentioned it already, but it's the GR-75 medium transport. That's the Rebel transports from The Empire Strikes Back when they're leaving Hoth. And yeah, so it's not quite as big as the Corvette, so it's only going to be $60. Still, it's a pretty good sized ship, and it's going to come with an X-Wing with a new paint job on it, as well as some new pilot cards, including Wes Jansen and Jack Porkins.
Woohoo! Finally!
Both of which I'm very excited to see.
Have we seen Porkins' card yet?
No.
That's going to be what everyone's looking forward to. More than anything else, they want to see what his special abilities are. Maybe he'll have a ridiculously high skill rating. I mean, he got as far as he did, not based on looks. I mean, you got to give him some credit. He wasn't the first one to die.
I think he should come out as his card should actually be a Y-Wing pilot card.
Why?
Have you never seen that video?
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
With the Porkins deleted scenes from...
I think I have. It's just been a while, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Where, that's actually why he blows up and dies, because he couldn't figure out how to eject from his ship, because he's supposed to be a Y-Wing pilot, but he just got scheduled to be in an X-Wing that day.
See, it wasn't even his fault. He didn't have the certification. They just said, you can pilot that, which is totally how the military would do it. Okay, so we've already mentioned cinematic play.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we mentioned it. It seems like we've talked about this before. Maybe I just have run through this conversation so many times in my head that it seems like we've talked about it.
We haven't talked about it on the podcast.
That's true.
So, yeah, the thing is with these two large ships is, as you might guess, as big as they are, they're not really going to fit in with the standard 100 points game. So they added two more different play modes. One's called cinematic play, which is really just like all the missions and scenarios that they already send with the ships that you get, but meant to be done with these larger ships also. So I don't really know why they said that they made a new game mode for that when it doesn't sound like it really is going to be, but I could be wrong since we haven't actually seen what all it entails. And then there's going to be the Epic Tournament format, which from all intents and purposes just sounds like it's going to be exactly what we have now, just with bigger point totals.
And hopefully bigger tables.
Yeah. I'm sure it will have a larger play area as well.
And have they mentioned... I mean, I'm hoping they'll have this, and I'm sure there are already variants out there that people have come up with, but have they talked about multiplayer? Like in these epic tournaments, you're going to have more ships. I would assume you'd have more people playing together than just 1v1.
I don't think they've really mentioned it. I mean, but even Fantasy Flight has done some multiplayer format stuff. Like here at Worlds, they're going to be having these, they call them X-Wing, furball games. And, basically what it is just, you get together with a group of players and you have for your team, and your team has a certain amount of points, and each player on the team gets one ship, and you just kind of have to decide how to divvy out all the points that you have for your team amongst the ships for each player. And so then when it actually comes time to play, each person only controls one ship, their own.
That would be very interesting to try out. So, the last point on this is that the upgrade and pilot cards from these bigger ships will be usable in standard play. Yep.
I mean, obviously you're not going to be able to use a Corellian Corvette piloted in X-Wing, but I mean, any of the, like the upgrade cards, as long as they're types that are compatible with the smaller ships, you'll be able to use them, in a standard, 100-point tournament.
And honestly, it seems like the upgrades and the pilots are the reason people buy the expansions, like with the X-Wing or the TIE Fighter expansions. Yeah, it was great to get another model, but it was the pilots and the upgrades that you really wanted.
Well, yeah, you had to buy your X-Wing upgrade to get Wedge.
Right, so it actually paid to get that instead of just another box.
Mm-hmm.
So the last bit of X-Wing news is the one that I'm probably the most excited about, because aside from the large ships, it's the most divergent from the pattern we've been seeing, and that's the Imperial Aces expansion, with 2 distinct special paint job interceptors and a slew of upgrades. OP upgrades. Are you as excited about this as I am?
I don't know if I'm ultra mega excited, but I'm really excited to have them. I think that they're going to be really cool. Basically we're going to be getting 2 interceptors. One that's going to have the red blood stripes that the 181st fighter wing had painted on their TIE interceptors. And then the other ones we're going to be getting, and which I think is a really cool thing, is going to be the TIE interceptors with the Imperial Royal Guard paint scheme on them.
Mm-hmm.
Which
that one looks really cool.
Which previously had only shown up in the Star Wars Galaxies game before this. Actually, they've drawn on things from Star Wars Galaxies a surprising number of times.
Really?
Well, yeah, like someone like the fire spray, like the other 2 fire spray pilots,
mm-hmm.
both came from Star Wars Galaxies. And there's been a couple other instances, if I remember right, where they've taken some lore or something from Star Wars Galaxies as well. So,
oh, that's pretty cool to hear for fans of Galaxies. And one thing that I noticed, and I just remembered where he's from, is the pilot of one of the Royal Guards, and that's Karner Jax. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's from the extremely popular Crimson Empire series.
Yeah, actually, two of the unique pilots in there, at least the 2 that they've mentioned. The other one is Kir Kanos. They're both from Crimson Empire series.
That's awesome. I mean, I think we've been seeing some of that with like the Dark Forces characters and ships showing
mm-hmm.
up in the games. I'm so excited because I want them to keep pulling from the best of the EU. I don't think we've seen anything so far that we were like, why did they choose that? I mean, everything they've pulled from the EU so far has been like, that was my favorite video game. That was my favorite comic book. And I think that's just fantastic. They're not just rehashing like the movies have just been done over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they have to be able to sell. I mean, it's not like they're just like doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. They have to sell. But the choices they're making seem really well thought out. Seem that way to you, or am I just...
Yeah, I mean...
just getting too excited?
No, I think they're doing it right. I mean, like you said, I'm definitely going to be picking up a set of these, even though right now I have as many TIE interceptors as I really need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be buying these for sure. Although it's kind of funny after these got announced, because I already added the blood stripes to one of my TIE interceptors myself, and then I took one of my TIE fighters and painted it up with the Royal Guard paint scheme. So it'll be kind of cool to have an interceptor with the same paint scheme. They'll kind of match each other then. Their paint job looks better than mine, though.
Well, I mean, you've only done a couple, right?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then we also get, along with the 2 new interceptors, like you said, there's going to be a lot of new pilots for the interceptors. There's also a bunch of new upgrade cards and stuff too. Like there's Opportunist, which lets you take a stress token, basically to add an additional attack die. There's a few other ones. Targeting Computer gives any ship the target lock icon. That could be kind of interesting to put target lock on some of your ships that normally aren't able to, for that extra re-rolling ability. There's hull upgrade, which increases your hull value, unlike the shield upgrade, which we previously had. And then there's the Royal Guard tie. It's a title card for TIE interceptors. That lets them have 2 modifications on their ship instead of 1. Which which is pretty sweet, but seems like you'd be putting a lot of points into just one ship if you're throwing 2 modifications on a ship, because most modifications aren't that cheap. In fact, now this new one, this targeting computer is, as far as I can remember, it's the cheapest one now, because this one's only going to be 2 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hull upgrade is 3. Was the shield upgrade?
The shield was 4.
Ooh, that was 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
Engine upgrade is 4, and I think, and engine upgrade was 4 also.
Yeah, that same video that I watched where they were actually running Biggs, Wedge, and Luke, they had the shield upgrade on all 3.
Uh-huh.
And that was pretty much the only upgrade that they had. And then Luke was running R2, which, was something that I think we all did when we got our first box, but hasn't really been seen a whole lot since then. And he was just, recovering shields until the cows came home. So, a whole upgrade on a TIE seems like a no-brainer. The same way a shield upgrade on an X-Wing seems like a no-brainer.
Well, you can put the shield upgrade on the TIE, too.
Do you need another upgrade to allow that, or just in general? Oh.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, as if you can spare that 1 extra point, you're gonna want to put a shield upgrade on there anyways, because shields are slightly more powerful than hull, because you can't crit on a shield. You can get a crit off on a hull though. And
the shield upgrade is still just a +1 shield, but even just having the +1 shield is gonna save you a lot of trouble.
There's always that chance that it's going to save you from that 1 crit or whatever,
Mm-hmm. So, that's going to be really cool when that comes out. 4th quarter 2013. Let's see here. The large ships, can't remember if we have an estimated date on that or not. It's been a while since we heard of it.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. We'll probably see more of it when you go to Worlds.
Yeah, they'll probably talk about it here, some at Worlds.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do like they did last time I went. Last year at Worlds, they gave everyone who pre-registered a free copy of the Star Wars card game. Maybe we could get free Corellian Corvettes this time.
Oh, yeah, I don't think so.
Well, you don't think so?
Maybe. You can hope. You can ask. It never hurts to ask. Like, you just show up, hey, are you giving away free Corvettes?
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen.
No. But, like I said, go ahead and ask on my behalf. Next up is the card game. Star Wars, the living card game. Now, have you been able to play any more since the last time we talked? Because before, you were saying you've played tons of X-Wing with people, but you've played almost none of the card game.
No, not really.
Really?
Really? Still haven't had a lot of luck finding anybody in the area that's playing the game.
Apparently, the same is here, because Thursday nights at Game Preserve Fashion Mall, go check it out, people, is every other night is Netrunner, and every other night off that one is X-Wing night. They call it Fantasy Flight night, but really it's X-Wing night and Netrunner night. So I just find it really odd that people just aren't, they're either just not latching onto it, or they're not hearing about it, they're not trying it. If they're spending all of their, their money, their hobby money on X-Wing instead of the cards, well, okay. I guess we'll let that one slide.
Yeah. Here's my thing. Between the two, I do enjoy X-Wing more.
Mm-hmm.
But, the card game's a lot shorter to play,
Yes.
You could finish, you can get easily a couple, maybe even 3 rounds of the card game in the same time as like 1 round of X-Wing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And the other thing is I haven't played it myself, but from all accounts, Netrunner is a really, really, really good game.
Oh, yes.
And, and the two of them came out at around the same time. I mean, Netrunner came out earlier than the Star Wars card game, but they came out around the same time. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're also just, even though they're two different franchises, I could see them still competing with each other in some ways. I could see Netrunner taking some people away from Star Wars.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. But I hope people aren't going to be too upset that we're not doing reviews on the last decks of the Hoth cycle, because we had been pretty good at giving everyone a card-by-card breakdown on the first few packs. But I think enough time has gone by, enough other people talk about it, and you've probably checked it out for yourself to see what has come and gone in the last half of the Hoth cycle. But overall, how did you think Hoth impacted the game just besides more options? Do you think Hoth is going to remain a playable strategy going forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's going to be a lot of cards that for quite a while here are definitely going to find themselves into many different decks. And even as we progress on past the Hoth cycle, I'm sure you'll find some people who still will build a deck around the whole, if you control more Hoth than your opponent, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that'll probably become even easier to pull that off as, as more new objectives come out. It's going to decrease the likelihood that somebody else is playing a Hoth objective. So you're not going to necessarily have to build your whole deck around having all Hoth objectives to make sure you have the most Hoth stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I might be remembering wrong, or maybe I haven't seen enough of the pods from the second half, but it seems like the Jedi and Sith were kind of light on Hoth. That Hoth was primarily military focus.
It sort of went back and forth, each one. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think in the end here, by the time the last one came out here, they kind of evened themselves out. I mean, like there was like in this very last pack, there was another Jedi objective set that came with Luke and like his land speeder, or I mean not land speeder, snow speeder, mm-hmm. and a few other cards. There was a couple other Jedi objectives. The Sith got and they also got in the last pack an objective set with the Executor in it, so.
Now was that Sith or was it Imperial?
No, it was Sith.
It was Sith? Okay.
Yep.
That seems an odd choice. It also seems an odd choice for, I'm going to refer to it by its CCG name, Commander Luke Skywalker, to be a Jedi when he's much more in military mode at that point.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily disagree with you there, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we can influence them, but
yeah,
it just seems to me like if you're going to run a Force-based deck, you're not really going to care about, controlling the Hoth objectives. If you're running Rebel, you're definitely going to want to care about Hoth objectives. And the Imperials are strong enough from core anyways, they almost don't need to worry about it. Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, you're right in that respect, in that most of the control more Hoth objective sets were either Rebel or Navy. But, I mean, that also just fits in with the themes better of those two factions versus the Jedi or the Sith.
Sure. And then moving on to the next cycle, and it's a little bit fortuitous that we kind of skipped the last couple months because we were like, we don't know what's going to happen with the next cycle. Well, now we know. We know that the Sith and the Jedi are going to kind of be the story focus of the next cycle, which is Echoes of the Force. And it's a huge departure from what we were guessing. Because I don't know about you, but I was definitely guessing, well, it's going to be Dagobah. Dagobah's going to be next. In terms of the theme.
Kind of what it seemed like it was what you would have thought it would have been, but apparently not.
No. So the first pack is going to be Heroes and Legends, and a lot of what they've shown so far, like we've been talking about, is pulling from the Dark Forces Jedi Knight series with Kyle Katarn and Mara Jade. Yes, that's right, Mara Jade. What was it? Mysteries of the Sith. I don't know. What do you think about this?
I think it's gonna be pretty cool. I mean, pull out Kyle Katarn, yeah, he's always cool. The thing I'm most excited though, of course, is just the fact that it's going to be having another version of Mara Jade. Because I didn't really care for the Mara Jade version that we're going to be getting in Balance of the Force all that much. So I'm glad that we'll hopefully be getting a more single player focused version of her.
Now, I was trying to find if they had a preview of the single player version of her.
They don't.
No? Okay. I was really hoping that was going to be around. And something else that I was curious about, not curious, but, another direction they could go, since we're going to get multiple personas, again, borrowing from the CCG, of these iconic characters. Like, we're going to have multiple Lukes, we're going to have multiple Hans, we've already had multiple Vaders. The Kyle Katarn from this deck is a Jedi already. I want to know if they'll, at some point, give us a mercenary Kyle Katarn for a smuggler deck. I think that'd be kind of cool thing for them to do eventually. Not like they're going to rush one out the door and say, we got to have more than one Kyle Katarn. It's imperative.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what's interesting, I like how they keep adding new, like with each cycle, sort of, they have different things. Like this one so far looking like is going to be focusing on the force struggle at the end of the turn. That's what this cycle is really going to be focusing on. So there's going to be a lot of cards that say, do this if the balance of the force is with you, or do this after you just win the force struggle, or different things like that.
Yeah, and from the few videos that I've watched of tournament play, it seems like it's largely an ignored mechanic. Has it seemed that way to you?
I would say, like, as far as a mechanic, it's not really used. I mean, it's not really like it's an ignored part of the game. I mean, trying to make sure you're the player who has the balance of the force with them can be incredibly important. I mean, it lets the dark side win the game in half the number of turns if they keep the balance with them the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as it being used by any mechanics of the game, there's not a lot of cards out there that actually really use it. So again, just this focusing on a different area of the game will help make the game more diverse and interesting than it is right now.
And that's also going to be Q4 2013. And also, this fall, we're guessing likely before November.
Yeah, so really, well, I would think they're going to have it before Worlds. But anyways, yeah, it's the Balance of the Force deluxe expansion for the card game, which is going to add the multiplayer aspects to the game and Mara Jade. But yeah, like they are having a 2v2 tournament at Worlds here in November, so you would think that would mean that they plan on releasing the Balance of the Force expansion before that. At least it was on the schedule of events the last time I looked. So who knows, could be wrong, but yeah, it's going to have a couple different modes of multiplayer. It's going to have 2v2 play, so you have 2 light side, 2 dark side players. Or else you can play with the challenge decks in them, which are going to work a lot like raid decks from the WoW card game, where you will have one player playing the challenge deck, and this set's going to come with 2 different ones, one for the light side, one for the dark side. And then you will play against between 1 to 3 opponents of the opposing either light side or dark side. And those 3 players will work together to try and defeat the challenge deck.
So, that's Balance of the Force and Echoes of the Force. So look for more of the Force. This fall. At least, hopefully in time for Worlds, and at the very least in time for Christmas.
Maybe they'll give out Balance of the Force for free to everyone who pre-registered for Worlds.
You're just making a list of things you hope
you'll get
free
for free.
free.
Fantasy Flight should give me.
So everyone, hit up Twitter at FFG, free things, hashtag free things at Worlds. and just give them ideas. You know, I'm sure they're always welcome to ideas like that. More free things. We're going to move on. Speaking of things that are not free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, obviously, we are fans of RPGs and Star Wars and Edge of the Empire. We've been talking about it since they announced it. And it's been... how long?
A little bit over a year, because it was last year's Gen Con.
Yeah, so since last year's Gen Con, we've been talking about Edge of the Empire. We had the beta book.
Well, we've been talking about it before then. I guess it was last year's Gen Con is when they gave out the beta.
Right. So we've had that beta book. We had that beta book in our hands pretty much through every single episode of MER that we had done. We talked about all the updates. We talked about the build-up, the adventures. We talked about, you know, when the other guys from the forums were playing the game. And then the official core stuff came out. And we talked all about that. And we're really excited about that. And you finally got to play a game, right?
Yep.
So we're finally enjoying the full Edge of the Empire spectrum. And now they've given us Age of Rebellion in beta, which we're kind of wondering why. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense since they're not really introducing a lot of brand new stuff. I mean, the possibilities of brand new stuff in terms of mechanical differences, because they function the same. You play them the same. They are not two completely different games. They are the Star Wars Fantasy Flight RPG engine. But they focus on different areas of Star Wars and consequently have the potential for some different mechanics. Like, I was thinking, maybe, that they would have a bigger emphasis on capital ship combat, since you're playing officers and not smugglers. Or you might have huge armies fighting against each other.
Well, you're not necessarily playing an officer. I mean, you could just be playing a regular old soldier or a pilot or...
Well, right, but I mean, just taking, like, the generic thought of military versus the generic thought of, you know, a smuggler lawbreaker type of guy. You know, so, I mean, you could have capital ships, mass armies. What's it like being a soldier, an officer, a guy like that, versus Joe Snuffy and Mos Eisley? But what you've said, Leo, is that we don't really get that.
Well, I mean, there's some... Well, I haven't bought the book and read through it thoroughly because I'm refusing to pay for it at this point. Because, yeah, I feel like this beta is pretty unnecessary, especially when you flip through the book. And essentially everything is exactly the same as Edge of the Empire. I mean, you've got new classes. Yes. And you've got the new races. But I don't think it's really necessary to charge people, you know, $30 or $40 or whatever it is for these beta books to test these for you. And I can't believe that's not something that their internal testing teams couldn't handle.
Because when we played through the beta, the weekly updates were pretty... I don't know, they were about specifics, not of the engine, but about, like, weapon damage, like costs of things. Things that were pretty easy to smooth out. That at this point, a beta has been done, things have been smoothed over. There were really not changes to classes. There was no change to core mechanics. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, why do we need to test what it's like to be an X-Wing pilot if they're not going to drastically change the way that space combat is done, at least based on what we've seen in the beta? And again, like looking at the past beta, the Edge of the Empire, the differences between the beta book and the full hardcover core book were really just some exposition and advice and art. Nothing drastically different to the core of the game. We could have kept playing out of the beta book and skipped the core book. So, I mean, let me ask you this. When Age of Rebellion hits in hardcover, will you get it?
Oh yeah, I will. I just, like I said, I'm not going to pay money for this beta test that I feel is unnecessary, and especially when I consider the fact that it's going to be a book that I would be replacing in a few months anyways.
Mm-hmm. But it is available for those that do want to get it. I mean, if it was free, I think we'd be excited, but they can't do that for various reasons. But I've seen it at my game store. I've tweeted pictures of it. It has not flown off the shelves the way Edge of the Empire did, but they're probably also printing a lot more. I think they probably noticed that beta books for Edge of the Empire were going up on eBay and Amazon rather quickly, and people were charging quite a bit for them. So hopefully they're printing more, and now that there's an audience for it, people are able to give feedback. Not like I said, not that we think it really needs it, but if they feel they need feedback, give it to them. That's what playtests and beta tests are for, as opposed to video game beta tests, where it's pretty much just play the game early, which is not a bad thing, but beta test has a very different connotation these days. So moving on from that, obviously we're not too jazzed about Age of Rebellion in beta, but sticking with Edge of the Empire, now again, I think I've gone through this conversation that we're going to have so many times in my head because it's been so damn long that it seems like we've talked about it already. The specialization decks, which are, I hate to call them, it's going to come off sounding like D&D 4th edition.
Yeah, that's exactly what they remind me of, is those worthless, power cards for the 4th edition.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, they seem like they're just a way for them to squeeze money out of you. And I've developed this whole big argument about, well, people buy core rules and then they stop. They don't buy anything else. So the company needs to keep making money. So people need supplements like this. It's an easier way of organizing stuff instead of scratch paper or the limited space that a character sheet supplies you with. Whether it's worth it, is up to the individual. If you're the type of player that, you like to have ready access and you don't want to pass around the one big core book so you can look up what a certain thing does, then I think it might be worth it to you. If you play a weekly game and you're really into your person, yeah, it might be worth it to you. I'm suspecting you won't be buying any of these, Leo.
No. Like I said, I bought one pack of those D&D 4th edition power cards, and they got used in like one session, and then I was like, these were kind of dumb. That was a waste of money.
Well, and especially on that, I'll say yes, those were kind of a waste of money, because if you had D&D Insider, which was less than half the cost of an MMO per month subscription, you had access to the character builder that had ready access to every single supplement, and you could build your guy, print off a character sheet that had printed versions of the cards. So they sort of put themselves out of business with that, because the character builder is the best part of DDI, and buying those cards is just not a thing. I don't think anyone is going back to try to find used copies of those cards the way they would go back to find miniatures.
No.
In this case, there's no character builder, and there are a lot of I'm not going to call them powers, but there are a lot of abilities, and the feat tree. There's a lot of stuff there to keep track of. So, like I said, if you're a player and you're really into your guy, it's good, but I could be wrong, Leo, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a deck for every single spec. Is that correct? Of each, or is it just career?
No, I think there's decks for all the specs, but only for a couple of the careers so far. They haven't added them all, I believe.
Okay, so of the classes of the careers that are out, each spec is represented. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And each deck, which is a single spec, is about $7.
Yeah.
And they've got, well, there are 20 standard-sized talent cards and 2 cover cards, including a reference guide for each deck. So, 20 cards?
Yeah, you know,
Really?
and here's another thing that makes me feel like it's not going to be worth it. I mean, we've got Sons of Fortune is on its way, which is going to be a basically a source book for. That's going to be about the Carillion sector, but that's going to have new species, and it's also going to. Sorry, no, I'm thinking of the wrong one here. Sorry, it was Enter the Unknown. That's the book I was thinking of. Which
they're both on their way soon.
Yeah, but the one I'm actually thinking of is Enter the Unknown, which is going to have, and then Dangerous Covenants, which are both going to be source books for the Explorer and the Hired Gun, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have new specializations and stuff, and new talents and things like that. So at that point, now your specialization deck is no longer useful to you. So why bother?
You mean if you make a new guy with those new specs?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you stuck with your main spec from Core Book, then, I mean, it would still be useful if you just stayed in that tree. But the second you want something that's not from Core, then you're out of luck.
I didn't really like the cards for D&D, and I don't think I would like the cards for this game either. So
no, and that's kind of the problem, because it's a hard print product as opposed to like a soft print, like I guess a downloadable thing would be, like the character builder. You know, they're obsolete. Well, they're not. I hate to say obsolete because they're not. They're still usable, but they don't give you a whole class, you know, in a single pack. I mean, it's only 20 cards. It's a single spec. I mean, that's half the cost of an LCG pack. An LCG pack has, well, it's about 6 pods, right?
Yeah, about that. So it's about 36 cards or so.
Six pods twice over?
Or
more, or is it fewer? Is it more like
no?
4
Usually
pods twice over?
it's like maybe like 3 pods twice over, and then 1 limit 1 or something like that. You know, so
okay. So we're talking about half price, and are we saying about half as many cards that may not be used unless you're really dedicated to keeping that character within that spec of that class?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because we don't really have anything about multi-classing. I mean, we do, but we don't.
What do you mean?
I mean, you can go outside your spec, but it costs a lot.
It doesn't cost that much, really. I mean, in fact, I think they make. I mean, if you want to try and take things from, like, if you start going from all kinds of different careers and stuff, it starts to get expensive. But I mean, to take 1 extra specialization or whatever doesn't cost that much. I mean, and the thing is the other thing is this doesn't have, like, I guess you could say it doesn't really have an end game. You know, like, you know, like the way, like D&D, it's like, you know, you hit level 20, your character's awesome then, but that's also kind of the end. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas like this, it's just like, I guess, you know, if you stuck with the same characters and you just played them long enough, eventually you're going to have bought everything for your specialization and for your career or whatever. And then, you know, what do? Then you could start spending your points in other careers and stuff. Right. Which would get to be pretty ridiculous. I mean, you'd have to play for a long time, I think, with the same characters to really start doing that, but.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm basically trying to find a devil's advocate, you know, good scenario reason to get these cards. And the one thing I will say is that with Warhammer 3rd Edition, which is the RPG that is closest to Star Wars, the core set of that was the $100 big box that had all of these cards and tokens and, widgets and everything else that we expect from Fantasy Flight that they're giving us in pieces with Star Wars, so we can elect to not have these things. In fact, with Warhammer 3rd Edition, they released the big box, and it seemed like people, didn't want to pay $100 to get soft cover books and a bunch of widgets, so they released hardcover books that you didn't even need all the widgets for. So, I don't know, it's their design philosophy, I guess, to offer, not to require, but to offer little things to try to increase convenience in your RPG, but we're not really seeing this as a convenience.
I don't know, not for me. I mean, when you try and have your cards all laid out in front of you, it takes up another chunk of space on your table. I guess I would rather see something. I would rather just see them come out with like a character builder piece of software.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I think character building software is some of the coolest stuff there is.
That then, you print out your character sheet, and by like each one of your talents you've taken on your character, it has a summary of whatever that talent does. Pretty much the same as the text you have inside your talent tree. That way you have all your information right on your character sheet, which you're going to have at the table anyways, instead of giving you yet another thing to try and bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you can check them out. I mean, I've looked at them. I haven't gotten to crack them open and look through them, but they're at my game store. They're right next to the other cards, like the Pathfinder cards, not the card game, but the Pathfinder, supplement cards that, again, are trying to convenience your play. Check them out if you want. Ask somebody at your store. I'm sure they'll be happy to sell them to you. But you've already mentioned the other supplements that you are excited about. We've got the book for explorers, the book for the hired gun, and I put in here a book for the smuggler, but you're right, it's not really a book for the smuggler. It's a book about Corellia.
Uh-huh. So lots of new starships, new weapons. I'm sure there will be stuff in there for smugglers or whatever you'll be able to find, but yeah, it's actually supposed to be it's about Corellia, like you said.
Yeah, and I guess I'm surprised to see books focused on a single career. I guess I would expect them to make a book worth buying that covered several careers that were kind of lumped together. Like, 3rd edition had, what was it? Complete Arcane, Complete Warrior, and even 4th edition had Martial Power, which all the martial classes, Arcane Power, all the arcane classes. I mean, are these also things that you will buy?
I probably will. I mean, they are cheaper. I mean, they're only $30
mm-hmm.
piece for these different smaller class books. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, it adds. It not only does it expand the classes, but it also expands it adds new specializations and stuff. And there's going to be more equipment and things like that in there. Information for GMs and stuff like that. If you want to, if you've got a bunch of explorers in your group and you want to build a campaign based around that, it's going to give you some ideas for that.
I think for me, that's the coolest part. Just to give people not just a good starting point, because they're just ideas. They're story
mm-hmm.
seeds that you can throw at your players and let them run with it. I think that's probably the coolest part, because if there's anything I've had trouble with, it's figuring out a way to start a game that isn't you're in the cantina.
Yeah.
But I can find ways to get people started in D&D that is not you're at the cantina, you're at the inn. But with this, it's much harder for me, and I don't know why.
Well, see, that's also one of the reasons obligation is there in the game, is for things like that. You need your guys to go meet with this Hutt crime lord who wants to send them on a mission, well, you just work the story in such a way as this particular hut is the hut that one of your players owes money to or whatever, and says, okay, you want to help take care of your debt, this is what you need to do for me, you know?
Yeah, but for me, that is the Star Wars version of You're at the Inn.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't have to do it exactly that way either, you know? I mean, there's lots of different ways. And again, you can do it differently depending on, you know, what their obligation is.
And I did get, the last time I got to play, which was quite a long time ago, I did get some very interesting interaction with the team. I don't even remember how it started, but we had 2 GANs, so that was interesting. But anyways, I'm actually going to be more excited to hear your report on how your game went. But before we get to that, Beyond the Rim is a new full-length adventure that we've talked about before, and it's available now. Have you picked it up?
I haven't. I've got a copy on order, though, which I plan to run my group through once we're done with this. Right now, we're playing through just the really, really short adventure that came with the GM screen, and I've been very impressed with that so far. So I'm gonna try this Beyond the Rim adventure next.
Cool. And I want to hear more about how your game went. The FAQ, though, is available now for download for Edge of the Empire. It's on the support page. And I think we mentioned this before. I just want to put it out there again. They have more than just a character sheet on the support page. They've got, I think, a party sheet. They've got a ship sheet. So get that stuff. I love that they have that support page for all these games. I'm just like throwing free stuff at you. I think that's fantastic.
Better than actually, one thing I found that's better than the character sheets that they provide for you is on the in the actual official Fantasy Flight forums. There's one thread there that's just like all kinds of different resources and stuff, from fan-made adventures to fan-made races, things like that. But my favorite thing on there is there's a character sheet. It's a PDF. It's exactly like the Fantasy Flight character sheet, but they have editable text fields, so you can just type in your character name, type in your stats and stuff like that. But the coolest part is that, okay, so if I put in that my brawn is 3, and then I put in, and then I put in my athletics ability as I have 5 ranks in athletic or whatever, it will then put next to your athletics thing, it will compare those 2 numbers and tell you, for an athletics check, this is the dice you roll. You roll 2 green die, and you roll 3 upgraded yellow dice, you know?
Oh, wow.
So it compares the 2 numbers, so you can tell at a glance without having to do the addition or subtraction or whatever yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just tell you right there by looking at a glance how many dice to roll.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I'll have to try to find that. Okay, so that is all the news. We have finally caught up.
That's fit to print?
That's fit for us to ramble on about. So, I want to get to community, because we put out a couple of questions about the state of SWTOR, and we got a whole bunch of great replies. Before we get to that, can you give us a quick rundown on how your first game went? Like your players, like what classes and species they chose. You said you're playing the game out of the GM kit.
Yeah, we're doing that adventure. Yep. Sorry, what?
What made you choose that one over Core Book or Crates of Crates?
I just, after reading them, well, part of it is I found the story interesting, because I do have a droid player, and I for a while there I thought we were going to have a second droid character, and if you've read the adventure in the GM guide, you know why that would be kind of interesting, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who might end up playing that adventure. But yeah, I think of the adventures I read that they've made so far, that one was my favorite of them, so that's why I chose that one. But so yeah, so we've got one guy, he's a droid, a droid medic, And we've got, what do we got? We got a Bothan smuggler as well as a Bothan, another Bothan. And then I think we just got just a plain old human, it's a Rhodian bounty hunter as well.
Ah.
So I find it amusing that one of our party is a Bothan with a bounty on his head, and then we also have a bounty hunter in the party, so.
Oh dear. Is the bounty hunter aware? Did he pass his perception check to realize that this guy has a bounty on his head?
Yeah, he does know. But they've kind of been paired up together because they both have been sort of working for the same hut because they both owe him a bunch of money.
Ah, that's got to be interesting.
Yeah, but playing the game now, the biggest thing that strikes me has been figuring out your dice rolls with the weird dice pool, and learning how to interpret those results. As the session went on, it continued to get easier. I think the biggest thing is spending your advantages and threats. Is that the
I think so, yeah.
one? Yeah. Is figuring out exactly what to do with those, especially in non-combat situations. Because in a combat situation, it's a lot more prescribed, like, this is what you can do with it. You can spend 2 to do this thing, and you can spend, in non-combat situations, it's a little less cut and dry,
Right.
And, so on some roles, you end up not even doing it because it doesn't really make sense for the role you're making to really spend those.
Now, did you find your non-combat skill checks to be probably the easiest part of the system?
You know what? Actually, I thought the combat was, at least combat skill checks, still the abstract, like just range bands moving around during combat. I think we're still going to take a little bit to get used to, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We had kind of the same thing, trying to figure out with how much or how many bad dice to throw in.
Yeah.
For each action.
Yeah, I found myself, but I mean, this is not so much this system because you can do the same thing in really any system. But I kept forgetting to add negative dice in for when they were shooting into melee.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, that's really has nothing to do with the system and just more to do with me being a bad GM.
Yeah, so you've said before that you are the one that gets stuck GMing 99.9 repeating % of the time.
Yeah, at least with Star Wars.
Yeah, and I pretty much GM the same amount for whatever we're playing. But I see it as a privilege because not everyone can GM. You have to have a certain level of OCD and egotism, I think, to be a GM.
I think for me, it's more just I really want to play the system, and if I didn't GM, I would never get to play.
Yeah, I think you've hit it on the head more than I. I think that's pretty much how most people wind up as the GM. You're usually the one pushing to play. Like, hey guys, let's play the game, and I'll GM. But fun so far? Oh dear, I touched a nerve.
Yep. No, it's not fun. The game makes me cough. I'm allergic to Edge of the Empire.
No! Oh, just think how the third expansion will make you feel.
Yes, no, it's been quite fun. We've had a good time. But, like I said, it's just been an adjustment period for both me and all the players because we're all coming from a lot of D20 experience. Probably the one guy who's had the easiest time adjusting to the new system is one of my buddies who he played a lot of the D6 system. And frankly, if you're going to compare this to any other system out there, it's probably closest to the old West End Games D6 system. So,
Well, that's good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad it hasn't been a tremendous disappointment. Like, oh geez, we waited all that time for this.
Yeah, no, it's been good.
Good. We did have something else planned to fill some time, but we've taken up a lot of time already, which we're not surprised at all. We kind of saw it coming. But we want to hit up the community, and let's see, I think it was yesterday and today, I think, as of today's the 12th of October, and of course, following hot on the heels of the Space Battle PvP news, I asked how everyone in the community felt about the Space Battle PvP at this point, if it was too little too late. And you want to kick us off with the first response, Leo?
No, because I'm
if
not
you are
looking
prepared,
at it right now.
Then I will kick off with the first response. That's okay, I'm sure you were doing research. So, @Bunkaroo said, just ended my sub today. I think I'd still be playing if they'd been quicker at getting content out and fixing stuff, so too late.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the next one?
Yes, I am. And,
okay, then.
That's kind of interesting because I kind of feel the opposite in that it makes me want to go back, but then again, I didn't just end mine today. I haven't played in months.
Right.
Yeah, let's see. So we got, from, Comer Este 87. He says, it's a step in the right direction, but until they have open space like the Jump to Light Speed expansion pack for Galaxies, then it won't be enough. And again, I agree. But I really hope it doesn't suck like Jump to Lightspeed did.
See, you were meant to read this one. And
I don't, and there's going to be people, like usual, who are going to jump down my throat for that, but I will never understand why anybody liked Jump to Lightspeed. Like I said, for me, it was the straw that broke the camel's back as far as Galaxies was concerned. Is I had quit the game just before Jump to Lightspeed came out. Or no, I was getting ready to quit the game. I was like, I'm done with this game. And then a Jump to Lightspeed was coming out, and I said, okay, I'm gonna stick around long enough for this. I'm gonna give it a try. And it sucked. I had 0 amounts of fun in Jump to Lightspeed. So I don't know what other people see in it. I hated it. Anyways, moving on.
All right. And @IChaseAnderson said, too late. They put too much effort into the cartel market, etc. Content is coming out too slowly, and it's bug-filled. And he's from, I think I missed copying where it said day 1 subscriber, but he's been playing since day 1. So, this raises, it raised, in my head, an interesting question, which was, where would you have liked to have seen more emphasis been put? Because at first we were hearing people say there's not enough endgame content. PvP is too level of a playing field. The above 50 is just too elite, and the 1 through 49 just is broken. And so I asked, where would you have liked to have seen it gone? And the first response, actually all the responses followed from our friend Sketty79, who said definitely more class stories. And if you wouldn't mind taking us through the next few.
And then we also had holy crap, it's late, say class stories. And then, but he says, but haven't we already been told that class stories are not going to happen due to the logistics/economics? And I guess, I don't know, because I haven't been keeping up on my SWTOR news, as you know, because my opinion on the game has been made perfectly clear. But I could see that being true, which, that makes me sad, because at this point, that's the only reason I wanted to continue playing the game at all, was to continue my story.
Well, and that's the fourth pillar that they put so much emphasis on? So it seems like that should have been their big grand plan. And they've talked about world stories, which are great, but, if we're going to put all the emphasis on me and my guy, going through the story, well, then make that the emphasis, which is what Gamer Lady said also on Twitter. I like to have more divergent paths among the classes, more options to see different content doing the 8 class stories. And I think that was kind of what we were hoping for when they said that, once you choose a path, you're locked into that path. And not just in terms of, do you choose the path of the tank or the path of the DPS? We would have liked to have seen choice or decisions matter. Someone, I can't remember who it was that defined the difference between choice and decision, but where decisions matter. And then if you want to give us the last Twitter one.
And Dr. Wadicus would like to have seen more than a 5 boss raid every 6 months. And I don't know, whatever.
Well, we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah,
off
it's
the
just
air.
I don't raid enough for it to really care. But I don't know. I guess a new raid every 6 months seems like a pretty decent pace to me.
Because going back to WoW, like we said before.
Yeah, but I was just gonna say, but drawing on my previous raiding experience, from when I did used to raid in WoW, that, doing the same raid over and over and over again, being stuck on the same one for 6 months, yes, it does get old. But, I don't know, it seems like it takes about that long to get, these are much smaller raids than WoW anyways, but I was gonna say, back then it took about that long for you to get yourself all geared up, your whole guild geared up, or your whole raid group geared up and ready to go to the next raid. So, but even still, I think 6 months is a pretty good pace. I mean, is that I don't know.
Well, no, I think that, it's harder for them to put out raid content as compared to a new arena, a new flashpoint. And those flashpoints really do kind of fill the gap, bridge the gap between the story portion and the raid content. I would get more excited for flashpoints than raids, but that's because I'm not a raider, and I like the story direct. I mean, I know the raids have story direction also, but the flashpoints seem like they have more of what I'm looking for. And I also, because, I'm a role player, so we killed the Lich King. Why would I want to kill him 20 more times? We've killed him. We beat him. We should move on. We've saved the kingdom. I think we're good. Why do I want to go to ICC again? I know, to get the rest of my gear, but you get what I'm getting at. And then from Facebook, we got a couple of replies to the question of where do you want to see the content. And Tom McNellis, class stories. Our friend Scott, class stories. And keeping up with more voiceovers. And that's probably the thing that's keeping class stories from going further is they got to pay the actors to come back and record more material, which, I mean, if you're going to pay someone to do something, I guess you'd rather pay a programmer less to do more work than you'd pay a voice actor, I suppose.
Yeah. So I guess I haven't, have you played Macab at all since you still play?
I haven't played for quite a while. I haven't had to play anything except for Magic. And that's because I know I love tabletop stuff more, and I haven't been able to get my group together. So, okay, I got one person. Okay, let's play Magic.
So, speaking of that, I downloaded the Duel of the Planeswalkers app for my Kindle.
Oh,
Man,
yeah?
That is a really horrible app.
Really?
It's crap.
Really?
Yeah, you can't even hardly play. So, there's that.
Oh, okay, well, get 2014 for Steam, and we'll play.
Ooh.
It's got booster draft!
Yeah, okay, you gonna pay for my boosters?
Well, no.
Well, there we go. Then I guess we ain't gonna play a whole lot of Magic, then, are we?
Well, we can play sealed deck.
You gonna pay for my sealed decks?
You get the first packs for free.
Like a drug dealer? It's the first one's free.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. I can't remember what it was. Someone was comparing to oh yeah, it was Hulu that the Soup Investigates was comparing to crack dealers. Because you get that free trial and they suck you in. Okay, so thank you, community, for those responses. I'm glad to see that we're all kind of on the same page of class story is where we want to see it, because that tells me that there are more role players out there than will admit it. So
Well,
go by Edge of the Empire.
even if you're not a role player, I think the class stories were the best and most interesting part of the game. I mean, really, pretty much everything else in here in the game you can get from essentially any other MMO out there. No other MMO I've played had quite as in-depth or well-crafted stories, individual stories for each class as this game. So, most don't even have any sort of class story. Most of them, it's no matter what class you do, you're always going through the exact same story always. So I think that's probably why we're seeing so many people say, hey, this is what we want, because it's the one thing that makes this game unique.
Yeah, and I. Chase Anderson mentioned they put too much effort into the cartel market.
Yeah.
To kind of fund their revenue stream. Yeah, every time I bought one of those crates, to get, it's the Darth Revan armor, I want that, you got Darth Revan's pants. Like, so I gotta buy more boxes, huh? So I buy another box. You didn't get any of his outfit, even his pants again. So, yeah, it's like, could you guys have been putting that effort into more stories? I mean, I know they're not the same. I know that's not a one-to-one correlation of, well, that money went towards cartel market. Let's put that towards story. But I don't know. I think we all agree, though. Class story is where it's at. So with that, we've been recording for a couple hours now.
It's probably about time for us to sign off then.
I think it is. So, you know what to do, Leo.
I do. So,
what will you do it? That's the question.
No. Sorry,
okay, fine.
not today.
That's all right, we quit. See you in 6 months. No, not really.
All right. So if you want to get a hold of us, you can always find us. You can find our website. It's at moseisleyradio.com. You can shoot us an email. We at moseisleyradio@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at moseisleyradio. You can find Mos Eisley Radio on Facebook and apparently Google Plus still. And
kind of.
And always you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or the Zune Marketplace.
I wonder when they're going to change the name of the Zune Marketplace.
I don't know.
I mean, shouldn't it be the Windows 8 Marketplace Arena of Death at some point soon?
Sure.
No, it'll be the NSA is watching you through your Xbox One Connect camera marketplace. Which reminds me, everyone who pre-ordered an Xbox One, cancel that and go buy some Warhammer or some X-Wing. Not the $12,000 worth of Warhammer. Not that much.
And no, I think you actually do have to buy that one.
Do you have to? Okay. Well,
it's the rules.
It'll be worth it in the end. Trust me. All right. Well, do you have anything else, Leo?
Nope. I think I'm good to go.
Well, okay. Since Leo is good to go, we will say good night and
sleep tight.
Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Pull the strings. 5 people got that joke. All right. We're gonna try to not make it another however many months it has been until next time. Because we got to report on Worlds at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Yeah. I hope everyone enjoyed. Talk to you later. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.